Kia ora koutou katoa, talofa lava, no mai, haere mai, awhia mai, o loo ingo Olivia Tauma, the Polynesian or Senior Pacific Manager of the museum, and we would like to welcome you to our wonderful Ngā Kākano talanoa today with our special guest, the Polynesian Panthers Legacy Trust. Malo pati pati. My job is to do the health and safety, so in case of an emergency, everyone please walk and follow our staff. Our staff have the lanyards on. You can see many of them around the auditorium, and they will take you out, not on the lifts, down the stairs, out to the southern entrance to the car park onto the grass area. The bathrooms are just through here, down onto the right, and I'd just like to call Charles, who's our Pacific Advisory Group representative, to start the evening with a blessing to settle ourselves in for a wonderful talanoa. Malo whawhitai.
Kia ora and Pacific greetings. On behalf of the Pacific Advisory Group of the Auckland Museum, a big welcome to everyone. And it is a journey that all of us, people of the Moana Niakiwa, have come to celebrate this evening. We've come and we paddled our waka under the guidance of our ancestors towards the Southern Cross of this beautiful land. We call it Promised Land of Aotearoa. Thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing your spirit. And before we start, it is culturally appropriate that we acknowledge the people of the Moana Niakiwa, people of the land, and also acknowledging our leaders of Auckland Museum. This is our sacred tahonga, where they housed and they've been restored and maintained for the many generations to come. Let us join our hands together and our hearts in a short prayer. And I'll do that in my mother language. Te atua, te tamea moantamaga, sikai tauko I bakin te marurung, sipusi ko irom tamim eroiri, kona korairoira, kairira I nanara wakin nara maroro, kakapaia te wakin te teirika yo, a sipusi ko mene rikira, me moana, nkarakoa tukina. Our Heavenly Father, we pray for the spirits to be among us, to be with us, give us the energy, and give us the learning. This is our own prayer. Be with us until the end of this program. And we all say, Amen. Thank you.
Te aroha, te whakapono, me te rangi mari e tato tato e. Te aroha, te whakapono, me te rangi mari e tato tato e.
Wow, that's bright. Tālofa lava, malo supo mo malangi ma, tēnā koutou. Welcome to tonight's session. E kore e haunaro, e kākano e ruia mai I rangiatea. I will never be lost, for the seed was sown in rangiatea. The Ngā Kākano Wānanga series takes its name from this whakatauki. Ngā Kākano provides an opportunity for a whānau and wider audience to attend special events held at Tāmaki Paenga Hira, and to learn from respected Māori and Pacific leaders and experts who share their unique experience, perspectives, expertise and insights, laying seeds to the knowledge at Tāmaki Makaurau Aotearoa and across Te Moana Niakiwa. Nau mai, haere mai, a whio mai, tala mai a ao, o loo ingoa o Wanda Yeremia Allen. I'm one of the curators for the Mana exhibition, Protest in Print. I'm one of 3 curators, Dr. Angelo, who's here with us today, and my colleague Paula Legal, who unfortunately is unable to attend due to health reasons. We welcome you as curators for Mana Protest in Print exhibition. Tonight's Ngā Kākano series is an activation of Mana, primarily because when we initially talked about doing an exhibition about a newspaper, and this is reported to me by my predecessor, Leone Samu, people said, how could you make a newspaper sexy? Who's interested in newspapers? Well, there's a whole world, wide worlds of communities who have been actively producing, writing, listening, protesting, agitating through print. This has been done since the print technology came into the Pacific in the 19th century, and we continue to do it today in many forms, in many areas, in many digital avenues. So this is really exciting for all of us. So yes, tonight is about Mana, but it's also about the legacy of protest. We named the exhibition Mana Protest in Print because there are various forms of protest. You know, we talk about often the foot soldiers, but there were also incredible people who were agitating and protesting in many forms and in many institutions. And tonight we wanted to honour the incredible mahi of the Polynesian Panthers Party Legacy Trust, who's been doing this work, you know, before I was born, before probably many of you, before your parents were born. And we wanted really to welcome them to Tāmaki Hira because I just could not believe that we haven't had the opportunity to host them here. And so with that, I just wanted to acknowledge that, and I look forward to building more meaningful relationships with the Trust over the next couple of years. I probably should have said that I'm Associate Curator for the Documentary Heritage team. So that looks at, I'm looking after the Pacific Collection that looks at publications, ephemera, photographs, oral histories. So, in the future, anyone, just a quick plug for anyone who's doing research, please, my name is Wanda Yeremia Allen, please reach out. I'm happy to invite you into our collections if you haven't done so already. My role really was to introduce Mana, but also to introduce our incredible host, who's going to be guiding us today. I'm so excited to introduce you to her. She's probably more familiar, you're probably more familiar to her, you know, with her incredible work as well. I'm only, over the last probably year, I've only started to learn about the incredible work that she has been doing with our Māori and Pacific rangatahi. So, without further ado, it's my delight to introduce you to Alakihihifo Vailala. She is an incredible journalist. She works at the intersections of activism, media and print as a political reporter. Ala hails from the villages of Have Luloto, Foia, Kolomatua, Kolo, and Hapai, and Haumoa, and Eua. She's a political reporter for the Pacific Media Network, based in the New Zealand Parliamentary Press Gallery. I understand it's less than 2% of people in the gallery who are Pacific, and so it's such an honour to support and hear and invite Ala to be with us today. So Ala she's a very busy lady, recently returned from touring the Pacific with Deputy Prime Minister Winston Peters in his reset tour of the Pacific. Ala is one of our youth representatives on the Pacific Advisory Group. So poor Ala probably didn't expect her to work so immediately after her appointment, but welcome. As a granddaughter of survivors of the Dawn Raid, Ala's passion for advocacy is deeply personal. The resilience of her grandparents continues to shape her commitment to storytelling that challenges injustice and uplifts Pacific communities. Please join me in giving a big mawhana welcome to our host for the evening, Ala.
Thank you, Wanda. Do you want to? Oh, use the mic. Oh, talofa lava, malelele. Thank you for making it out. I know the traffic has been insane, but again, thank you so much for your time. My name is Anae, and I'll be your host for tonight. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce, our legendary panel members for tonight. Now, let's just start off with Lupematasila Misa Tauveve, Dr. Melani Anae, who is a member of the Polynesian Panther Party and now the chair of the PLT, the Polynesian Panther Party Legacy Trust, She is the coordinator of the Educate to Liberate program in schools since 2011 and the Our Living Room Professional Development Program for Teachers Corporate since 2020. And she's also the Honourable Associate Professor in Pacific Studies at the University of Auckland. That bio is just a glimpse of the amazing work that Lupematasila does for our community, and I'd like to welcome her to the panel. If we could all, round of applause. Next up, we've got Tigilau Ness. Tigilau is the Triple P Minister of Culture and Fine Arts and member of the military wing, now member of the Polynesian Panther Party Legacy Trust, and is of Niuean ancestry. Any Niueans in the house tonight? Oh, there we go. He became a Panther member in the early 1970s and has been a consistently active voice in issues of justice, freedom, and equity. I just watched a clip from the protests from the during the South African tour, and he's wearing a silver helmet and has a shield, and gosh, powerful moment. I'd like to introduce Tigilau to the panel. If you could please make your way up. And most notably, Tigilau's son is Shefu, the one and only. And last but not least, Reverend Alec Toleafoa, who is also a member of the Polynesian Panther Party and also a member of the military wing. And he is of Samoan ancestry and completed training at Knox Theological College, University of Otago, and was ordained in 1986. How many years is that now? Almost 40?
About 140.
140. There we go. That's a story, Mary, right? And of the Presbyterian Church of Aotearoa, New Zealand. I would like to welcome you to the panel, please, Reverend. Whawhetai lava, that was only a glimpse into the amazing bios and the things you have accomplished for our community. So again, thank you for your time. Now I guess to pass over the mic to you, Reverend Alec, for opening remarks.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ala. I want to acknowledge the people of Tāmaki Paenga who have made this evening possible, and thank Olivia and also Wanda, Iremia, and Andrea Lowe, who have been great supporters of the Polynesian Panther Party over the years. There is a small but powerful exhibition of the Polynesian Panther Party that was curated by Andrea Lowe. And this is the first time that we have ever spoken here in this auditorium under the roof of Tāmaki Paenga Hira. And it's been maybe some time happening, but it's happening now. I want also to acknowledge the kaikarakia for this evening. Tēnā koe, thank you so much for your blessing and bringing that spirit to this whānau here this evening. I also see in the audience that there are many people who are activists, and I'm surprised that there isn't a riot already happening. But we're here in peace, and so it's good to see you all here. There are people I see from Te Ohu Whakawhanaunga, people from who have involvement with the living wage and who currently with the New Zealand or NZEI, Te Uriroa, Chris McBride, who is an activist in his own right, and he goes way back, and he's a very powerful supporter of the Polynesian Panther Party, and also Christina and Colin Jeffries, who have supported us in many things, many activities that we've had. So there are people who have been frontline activists, and there are others who have supported that activity in the background. I can't see you all. That's because I'm not wearing my glasses. But yeah, so if I have missed you, it's because of that. These are the wrong glasses, by the way. So also this evening, we appreciate that we are, well, earlier this afternoon, we gave a presentation to around about 800 to 900 university students from the population health. But we find this audience here far more challenging and far more intimidating, mainly because some of our harshest critics are in the audience, namely our family and friends who will probably critique us at Sunday Tōna'i this Sunday. So we're looking forward to that. So I just want to add to the great introductions that have already been given for each of us, and there are some things that we share in common. There are other Panther members here this evening, and possibly Polynesian Panther Party Legacy Trust members who are here. There's Yeki Toa Taihia and Wayne Toleafoa, a former Minister of Information for the Polynesian Panther Party. So we acknowledge the members that are here this evening. So there are some things that we all share in common. One, that we're all original Panthers, and at least for us three sitting here, and for my brother, of course, we were all raised in the village of Ponsonby, and we still live in the village of Ponsonby, and we're not moving anytime soon, even though they tried to do that back in the 80s. In any case, the other thing that unites us and we have in common is that we are all first generation New Zealand born of the first wave of Pasifika settlers came here to Aotearoa to fill the labour shortage during the boom time post-war New Zealand. So that's something else that we have in common that's very important to us. I think that's all I need to say at this point. And I guess as the evening unfolds, you'll find out more of the detail and the activities that each of us have been involved in. So thank you very much for coming here this evening and working your way through the traffic, and we appreciate your time and attendance. Kanui te mihi kia koutou katoa, nā reira tēnā koutou, kanui ngā mihi atu kia koutou katoa.
Whawhetai te le lava, Reverend Alec Toleafoa, for the opening remarks. Now, just the audience, we're just going to kick into a short video clip.
Oh, it's my turn.
Oh, whoops, sorry. Apologies for that, yes.
Yes, sorry. You want to talk about the video first?
Yes, you go ahead, kick us.
Okay. I just wanted to do a little exercise with us before we start. I'm standing up because we're not used to these flash mics. And we're always having a mic. But I just want you to very carefully but quietly stand up if you have children aged 16, 17 years old, or nephews and nieces aged 16 or 17 years old. Stand up, please. Oh, okay. Thank you, thank you. That's quite a few of you. I did that to let you know that we were their age. We were their age when we changed the face of Ponsonby. We stood up against the racism and social injustice that our people and families were experiencing in Ponsonby Greyland. And so we are very proud of that. Some people call us activists, some people call us freedom fighters, some people call us revolutionaries. Our own ainga called us moipi, which means bedwetter for those of you who didn't understand. But we were that. We were just kids. But we stood up on behalf of our parents, who were so respectful of authority in this new land, that too busy, you know, putting a roof over our heads, food on the table, and we saw that Ponsonby was our hood. And growing up, there was no roadmap about how to be a New Zealand-born Pacific Islander, so we had to carve that out for ourselves. So I could talk about our platform and our program, but we're going to save that for the talanoa that we have with you later. So sorry, can you bring in our video?
Absolutely.
The Polynesian Panthers were willing to take on a system that was unfair. We have the right to protest, to speak out against the injustices that our people were facing. Our legacy is that we've stayed on the right side of history all our lives, and we haven't changed.
What we're saying to the young people out there is you have to stand up strong in your own mana. Surround yourself with like-minded people and go for it.
As a tamaita i Samoa, I have spent much of my time in the activism space, working to serve my communities through advocacy, education, and supporting spaces for Pacific voices to be heard. When I think about Pacific activism, I think of the word tautua, service. It's about centering our peoples, our lands, and our stories. And I stand on the shoulders of giants, those who have served our communities before me so that I might do the same now. That same service to our people has followed us across generations and across oceans. From the peaceful resistance of the Mau movement in Samoa to the young Pacific activists of the 1970s dawn raids here in Aotearoa to now, our young people have always been on the front lines of change.
We were just kids. We were just New Zealand-born kids who knew that things weren't right in the hood, which is Ponsonby Grey Lynn.
What brought us together was our common experience of racism. Many of our elders were too busy just putting food on the table and clothes on our back and a roof over our head, and they never had time or the luxury to protest. But we did. We knew that something needed to be done.
Obviously, activism is a big part of our communities and of our cultures. So how would you define Pacific activism?
Our activism doesn't start here. It starts in our home islands. We look back at our ancestry of activism. Groups like the Mau, for example, the things that they were doing in Samoa, boycotting the government stores, boycotting the plantations, these direct action, non-violent protest, non-violent resistance, these are the very same things that we are doing in our own generation. And it's the same things that we see happening now with the newer generation as well. It's a pattern that is throughout the Pacific.
The Pacific generation was the first to land on the doorstep in Aotearoa. It was our programs that forged the way for how the government needs to look after migrant groups coming into the country. Our TAB program, Tenants Aid Brigade, led the way for the development of the Tenancy Tribunal. That's what activism can do. Change will happen.
Today, the fight continues. Our communities face new battles, climate change, inequality, and health inequities. And just like the Panthers did back then, us young Pasifika are standing up and pushing forward. This generation is here to make a change, to challenge the norms, and to demand a better future. So tell us about yourself and your journey in activism.
Well, my name is Sia. I'm freshly 18. I just graduated from Howard College. But I would say my journey in activism, it started really young, back in year 9 and 10. It was when I really saw the gaps in education. And that's when I started things like Alofa Tutor in my school, got a part of Sisters United, and now I'm the founder and the CEO at Levi of Hope, which is a new movement for Pacific Brown young people.
Oh, beautiful. And tell us more about Levi of Hope.
Levi of Hope, we work in changing the narrative and challenging stereotypes that we see in the media, whether it's news or whether it's social media, and even maybe new policies that we see being rolling out. We challenge what that means for Pacific young people, how we are ultimately affected by that. There's still systematic racism being reinforced on Pacific youth. How we work into this space is that we actually stand up and we say no, that there is a truth, there is a story, there is a different narrative.
No matter what the type of oppression, whether it's environmental, whether it's through education, at the root of it all is the ideology and action and damage of racism. And that's what we all have in common with the young people that are standing up today. Back then, our tools were just, what? The coconut, the coconut wireless. And, but the tools that our young people have now is amazing, the social media, but it's being critical of that social media. They have to learn what is disinformation and misinformation.
We realize that we get talked down on a lot. The system itself, it's this missing gap of nurturing relationships, even cultural competency. We're very strong on, we want to build relationships with our student. We didn't want to be that same system or process. We bring in those tools, whether that's creating CVs or having confidence in your communications, or whether that's actually being able to get a license, simple things like that. And we also look for this bigger purpose to lift up and encourage young people. To have Pacific people in spaces like activism, it brings the stronger influence. Pacific people, they're at the forefront of the impacts. We can't just sit aside and just hope that people are going to sort these issues for ourselves, but that we can actually enable our own voices to step up.
Your activist work is to look after the va between those above, those beside, and those below. It's working with people, our tamariki, our children, our communities. And I learned that as a Panther. We've spoken to thousands of school children over the years. It's just trying to get people to understand what racism is through the Panther lens.
It's still to do with identity. We are still finding, when we go to schools, that is something that keeps popping up all the time.
See and learn what you're doing now, put it into action when you're old enough to vote.
Within mostly Indigenous communities, the Dawn Raids, for example,
Finding out about your roots.
one of those.
Today, those are the important things.
There is this panic that if there's too many Pacific people coming in, they're going to dominate and they're going to start taking over the economy, they're going to start taking over jobs.
What's facing us today is misinformation. Telling us that our history is what they write, etc. So no, we got our own stories. We got our own ways of doing things. It's good to know that they're learning their true history. All what happened during the Dawn Raids, this is part of the healing, that the young ones know the truth. And as we know, the truth sets you free. What we're talking about, educate to liberate, finding out about the words and the meaning of words and the language, that liberates you, so you don't get afraid of using activism. You know what it means.
It encourages learners to think critically about the reality that they are in and not just simply accept it as being what it is. And the end goal through that criticality, that you will find your own agency and you will be able to stand up against the things that you are being critical of. So this generation and the succeeding generations that are going to have to live in a world that's going to be very different unless strides are made now. This generation have taken up that challenge and I think are making all the right moves.
When the heat gets high.
For Pacific youth, our power lies in unity. We are making a future where our voices matter, where we speak up and create real impact. I guess we have to remember that activism isn't doing all the work at once. So what would be your advice for a young Pacific person who wants to come into activism? How do they start?
For myself, who's still on that journey, it would be that you are enough. That you are Pacific enough, that you are island enough. You could even say brown enough, and that's not just referencing your skin color, but it's this idea that there's nothing wrong with not being able to know everything, but there's a journey that you can start being able to understand your cultural identity and how that plays into spaces, that it is okay.
We are rich in our history of standing up, totoko, you know, our stories. So going forward, write about them, sing about them, draw about them. Your culture will put you in the right place.
The future of resistance is ours to build. It's alive in every voice and in every action, and it's just getting started.
Really, you know, proud and satisfied that something that we did might have inspired somebody now, and we're grateful for the generations that have come and have picked up the baton and carrying it on into the future.
Wow, powerful. You are enough, right? Oh. Now we're just going to open the talanoa to you, the audience, for questions for our panel. We've got just over half an hour for questions, so feel free to raise up your hand. Someone will come up to you with a mic. Please don't ask your question until you get a mic. We just want to be able to hear and answer your question properly. Malo pito. But let's start off. I'll start with my own question as a journalist. So I guess just take us back to the 1970s. What was the political and social climate like for Pacific people?
Well, I mentioned earlier that we are the children of the migrant settlers that came here in the 1940s and 50s. So there was all of the tensions of relocation and dislocation and resettlement. Some of the difficulties that we faced were, of course, the ones that I think most migrant communities around the world face in their host countries. Lack of understanding, ignorance of us, and that expressed itself in very negative ways, often in discriminatory and racial discrimination, racial prejudice, etc. Some of our programs were responses to those sorts of experiences that we were having. So, for example, many of the places that our people were living in, the landlords at the time were charging exorbitant rents for those tenancies, and when there was a complaint from the tenant, they'd be turfed out instantly, all their property just thrown out in the streets. There wasn't anything like tenancy agreements, and there were so many things that were missing in that time that we have now, that we enjoy now and take for granted. For example, the police investigation group, that was in response to the disproportionate rates of arrest and unlawful detentions and police brutality in Ponsonby and Great Inn. That was a response to that. So these are the things that were impacting on our community at the time. And as young New Zealand-born Pasifika people, we had no models or roadmaps to show us what a New Zealand-born is supposed to be and how to be and what values we need to have. So there was a conflict between the traditional values, the ones they came here with, and the ones that we were being exposed to being in another culture, growing up in another culture. So one of the other indicators of how things were in the 1970s was the dawn raids. We can't get around that. That is, and that was something that impacted not just Pasifika people, but also tangata whenua. Anybody who was brown was impacted by the policies that were implemented by the governments of the time, and that exposed the dawn raids that we experienced is not the first dawn raid that ever happened in Aotearoa. Aotearoa has a very long and atrocious history of dawn raids. We think of Parihaka, think of Rangiawhiao, we think even of Okahu Bay, just down from here. So that's the history. So in a sense it was kind of prefigured that we would be dawn raided as well, because the philosophies, the lifestyles, the policies that gave rise to Parihaka, Rangiawhiao, all those other places, that is what gave rise to the dawn raids in our experience. And until those philosophies that informed and gave rise to the dawn raids are dismantled and no longer exist, we can expect that same behaviour for another population in the years to come. So I think that would be just a snapshot of what we as young 16-year-olds were dealing with at that time, and also what our parents were facing as well. I wondered often, why did my mum and dad come home stressed out so heavily when they returned from work? And it's the whole experience of not being able to explain something at work, or not being able to explain a piece of technology, or because they're speaking with an accent, they become the brunt of jokes, they become, ridiculed for that. And it's not just their experience, it's the experience of every migrant for whom English is not their first language. So they'd come home and sometimes that stress would spill over and they'll take it out on us. That was one of the experiences that was common in all Pasifika families at some point at that time. And I guess one of the places where we could find a little bit of solace and a little bit of peace was in the church. And that was the PIC church in Newton for many of us. The first of its kind that was a home, a spiritual home, a religious home for Samoa and Tokelau Niue Kukarangas who were looking for a spiritual home here in Aotearoa. So that was a very important and significant role that the church played at that time.
I think the biggest impact of the Panthers was that as kids we shone the light on things that were hurting us that nobody cared about. Housing, education, police brutality, and all the social inequities that were around. We shone a light on that. And I think to join the Panthers, we had to read Seize the Time by Bobby Seale of the Black Panthers in America. And when we read that, we saw that the problems that the African American communities were facing were the same as what we were experiencing in Ponsonby at the time. And so for the first 3 years of our existence, now 1971 to 74, our community survival programs kicked into place. We had education homework centres, we made food co-ops together with our allies in Ponsonby, the Palangi groups that were against racism too, People's Union, Halt All Racist Tours, those groups. We worked together and we did what we could to help our communities, and we were just kids ourselves, but we called on the allyship that was around us. That's why I said in that video, if any of our kids are passionate about what's wrong with their hood, they surround themselves with like-minded people and stand up. Don't wait for anybody to do it for you. Some of them say, oh, we've got specific politicians now. I said, oh, no, forget about them. They've got their hands tied. They have to toe the party line. You can do it yourself. Stand up and call it out. And so that's the message that we're sending to the kids in the schools. So, yeah, those 3 years were our busiest, right? When all our programs were put into place. And police brutality was probably the worst ones. You'd be walking down Ponsonby Road And of course, the brothers here had afros and jeans, a look shirt. We could see the cops stopping their cars, harassing them, and the next minute they're in the cars going somewhere. And what happened, Tingy? Where were they taking you?
Well, I don't think people here would understand, some people here would understand what was happening to us back then on the streets. Today we know for a fact that majority of Māori and Pacific Island youth were being picked up for statistics, police quotas, and you know what we grew up seeing a lot of our friends and some of our family being disappeared, taken out of the community. And as a young person, I often wondered, where are they going? Why? And our parents and the adults at that time would say and think that these children are bad children. Why they're being taken away? Or the parents couldn't cope with the children, you know. So growing up like that and watching people around you disappear, it's only now we find out where they were going and what was happening to them. A quota, a systematic racist attitude and thing that was happening to us, especially living in the city. And we find now that the majority of the people, young ones, starting off first with social welfare homes. The stuff that was going on in those homes, now we know where a lot of our people were going to, a lot of our young ones were going to. And our parents, humble of course, wouldn't question what was going on. But some of our Palangi friends, they stood up. And they could see what was going on. And when I think in particular, like Dr. Oliver Sutherland of the Auckland Citizens on Racial Discrimination, what's coming out, like, the Royal Commission Inquiry, the biggest commission inquiry into what was happening to our young in those times, in those days, and like what Reverend was saying, to be walking out on the streets, was a dangerous thing. One of the most common laws was idle and disorderly. If you're young and you're walking out on the street, you're going somewhere, you easily get pulled over, questioned, and if you haven't got money in your pocket, well, you're idle and disorderly. So the trajectory from there, welfare homes, and then eventually prisons. And today we know for a fact that way is a multi-billion-dollar industry. To imprison who? Majority brown. And it didn't matter if even Indians got picked up, got questioned. It was a laugh. A lot of the authority at that time, they were filling a quota to see how many people they could arrest in 8 hours of the day. That's a true thing. So growing up like that, something had to happen. And because of us, with our Palangi friends too, know that it wasn't right, then we had to do something. So the protesting that went on, our former chair, 16 years old, locked up in Mount Eden prison. You don't lock up kids with adults. But that was the way of life back then for us, the way of thinking. We protested with a whole lot of other Palangi supporters who could see, that's not right. And we know now. But at the time, nobody cared.
Good questions.
Any questions from the audience?
Yes.
What hardships did you guys have within your own communities? Was there any pushback within the community itself, whether it be your parents or friends or family? Were there any relationship lost due to your political activism during the time?
I think we were the only group that stood up and could see what was going on. and the church. A lot of the older people in the church were wondering what was happening, especially with the dawn raids. When the dawn raids happened, meetings and huis and you know what to do and why was this happening. But we were sort of outside of that. We were more radical in our way. How can they do that to us? And we've got to do something about it. And so some of us thinking more radical with our collaborating friends who, you know, had the cars, so to say, and, you know, because we couldn't afford cars. We did that kind of thing. Went out to the politicians' houses, you know, over the dawn raids. And the other issues that we were facing then. How come a majority of people in prison were Māori and Pacific Island? And how will our whānau get out to see them? Well, we helped and organised bus to take families out to see people that were incarcerated at Paremoremo. When Paremoremo first opened up, it was the maximum prison here. First time people could be put behind bars and have no privacy. So our people, a lot of our people were going into the prisons like so. And like I said, the trajectory was that, to imprison as many as possible. You might not think that that's the way, but it is, and it still is. You know, so a lot of the people in the community rose up against it, and we were at the forefront of that. Just being young and bulletproof, I guess. Not afraid.
One of the toughest things that we experienced, I think, for the whole community and the whole of New Zealand was the dawn raids. An example, in one weekend, 200 houses were raided and 865 people were randomly checked. So when you look at the average house and household in that time, you're looking at about mum, dad, 3 or 4 children, and possibly another relative living in that house. So you multiply that 200 by the number of people that are in that house, and you're looking at somewhere in about 1,000 or even more than that, plus the 865 that were randomly checked. And out of all of that, only 23 people were found to be here unlawfully. So minus that 23 people, everybody else was here legitimately and was innocent, but they were still impacted by the manner in which those dawn raids happened. Houses being surrounded by police dogs running through the houses, and then being treated as criminals. It's not a crime to be an overstayer or to be here unlawfully without the proper permits. But they were treated like criminals. Fingerprints, incarceration, and then deportation. And the larger picture was that the majority of overstayers were from Europe, the UK, from North America, and other parts of the continental world. And the Pacific overstayer population accounted for roughly 30%, but we made up 75 to 80% of the arrests and deportations. If that's not injustice, if that's not racially targeting a group, I don't know what is. So, you know, those were some of the experiences that we had as Pasifika, our journey, Pasifika journey here in Aotearoa. Gratefully though, with the lobbying of the Polynesian Panther Party, we were able to obtain a government apology for that behaviour, for their behaviour. And whatever you might think about government apologies, one of the things that was distinguished this apology was that the truth was revealed. The truth came out. Many people started, who knew nothing about the dawn raids, suddenly have this in front of them. And it's very confronting for some people. But that was one of our experiences, one of the darkest experiences within our own history, our own journey here in Aotearoa. And one of the positive outcomes of the apology is that now people are able to tell these stories without having to carry the shame and the opprobrium that comes with interactions that we have with the authorities, which for most Pacific people is not something, is unsavoury and is disgraceful. But that's not our fault. And this is what that's what emerged out of the apology, that it's not our fault. And it was important that the government took responsibility for its behaviour, and they did that the best way they know how, is to fund something. And so they've been able to fund projects that have enabled the voices of Pasifika people to be heard, and responses through creative responses are being made through things like the mural that you saw here, creative responses in literature and in other forms. These are helping the healing of that whole traumatic time. And so that gives an answer to that question. A rather long answer, but I think it needed to be mentioned. Thank you for the question. Yes.
Just from me, around the same time as the apology, for many of my generation, our first time hearing about your story was through the Panthers series, which I believe was broadcasted on TV1. If I could just get a raise of hands from the audience, who's actually watched the series, the Panthers? Yes, quite a lot of audience. So could I just perhaps get your thoughts on the series and its accuracy in portraying the story of the Polynesian Panthers?
Okay.
Don't get us started.
Looks like I've been voluntold to do this. Okay, well, the Polynesian Panther Party Legacy Trust were approached for input into the scripting of that series, and we were even present on site watching some of the filming. And a lot of the advice that we gave them was ignored. A lot of the information about our history was ignored. And I think on a project that is publicly funded like that, there are certain indices that they have to meet, like network requirements and also production requirements, etc., etc. But it's not our story. It's not our story at all. So if you have watched that series believing that's our story, it isn't our story, not even close to our story.
Yes, because, you know, the last 20 years we've been going into schools telling the school kids that we weren't a gang. I mean, that was the stigma that we grew up with. Our parents thought that the Polynesian Panthers was a gang, and we weren't. And so this thing comes out on TV for a really popular program, and now, you know, the kids, we're trying to explain to them that's not our story because we weren't a gang. The languaging was not right. We had rules when we joined the Panthers. No guns, no drugs, no alcohol, and no swearing. And a lot of our Panthers couldn't watch after the first episode. They couldn't watch after the first episode. And the only probably accurate portrayal was me climbing out the window to go to the first meeting. Honestly.
That'd be the only bit out of hours of the series. And there was also a second series that was funded for it to go ahead, and we were approached then if we would participate in the second series, and we just gave them a flat no. So they wanted to talk to third parties, get the story secondhand from third parties, but out of respect for the Panthers, those third parties refused to comply or refused to participate in that. And so that was a good thing to hear, and that's why Series 2 never happened. So we now have to go to school and defend ourselves. When we're talking to schools, we need to defend ourselves and say, no, that's not our story at all. The one you're hearing tonight is our story. That is our story. And there's a lot more than we are able to say this evening. Yes.
One of the producers that was involved in that series, he went on to make a better movie. And he won accolades for it. The Tongan brass band.
Yeah, the brass band movie.
Red, white and brass.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he went on and done something better after he took advice from us.
So, are you starting your own consultancy? Am I saying? I believe we have a question from the audience.
Oh, good.
Talofa, yeah. I haven't seen that series only because just from the outside it looked Americanized for me. So I just wanted to touch on that because when we think, for those of us that aren't activists or haven't had your history, like they think of activism as glamorized, like, you know, like exciting, like all that exciting stuff when it's actually a lot of hard work behind the scenes. So so I wanted to ask how, I guess, and because you shared that you were only 16 at the time, there was no blueprint as New Zealand-born Pacific Islanders. But for this generation, I'm just saying, how can they be activists given the current system, like local politics or, you know, in their own processes, because it's local elections year this year and low voter turnout, you know, we can be activists given in the process, you know what I mean? Instead of this glamorized image of confrontation and yeah, I'm basically just asking how can our youth be activists given the current systems that we have?
Yeah, we often get this question with some of the kids in the schools, and the first thing the brothers say is, to be an activist, you have to tidy up your room when your mother says so. Because within that is respect and discipline and the rest of it. But honestly, a lot of them say, we want to be Panthers, how can we be activists? And all we can say is that you have to live by our platform. Our platform over the years has morphed into 3 main points: to peaceful resistance against racism. The racism that the Panthers are pushing against is one kind, it's institutional systemic racism. There's lots of other racism, well, people think there's lots of other racisms, and the government, I mean, you know, likes that confusion to keep happening. You know, there's personal racism, there's internalized racism, and what they don't know, and this is really important because people don't know what racism is, especially Palangi people. They don't know what they don't know, right? So our job is to tell them what we experience as racism. Racism for us, we call it everyday. It's everyday racism. We wake up in the morning, it's there. We have breakfast, it's there. We catch the bus to go to school or work, it's there. It's there in the Auckland Law Library at the University of Auckland, everywhere. Just recently, Alec, you want to tell them your example?
Well, there's many. Yeah, I can tell you about that.
There's lots, but a recent one.
Well, you know, just recently we were doing a Panther presentation in Otautahi, Christchurch, and afterwards we wanted to go and have a coffee and a break. So we went to this random place and we just walked in there, and there was this Palangi family that was sitting there, and so we all walked in there, and as soon as we walked in, the mother just grabbed her bag, and we were sitting a whole table away. And that happens often. This is the everyday kind of thing we're talking about. But in terms of your question, there are already young people who are standing up and making their voice heard for the things that are impacting on them. And it seems to be the main, and I think this is a global thing too, it certainly is a global thing, but they're making their voices heard about the impact of climate change in the Pacific. And they've added the word justice onto that because it is a matter of justice. The people who are most impacted by that are the ones who have the least say. And so voices that you saw here in this brief video are only some of the voices, the youth-led voices that are speaking out against the things that are you know, going to impact on their present and in their future. There are other examples where youth have not sought permission or any kind of validation to go and do what they did because what they're standing for is impacting on their everyday life. So we have one of the most beautiful things we ever saw was schools, when there was a lot of intra-school violence that I think it was Macquarie organised raising awareness about inter-school violence, and there was a march involving up to 2,000 students, and it was not even reported. And that was one of the most standout messages from the billboards or the placards was only the hood can heal the hood. So there are these people coming up within their own hood to look at what's affecting their own hood and taking action, very much the pattern of our own, of our experience. So there are already young people that are standing up and finding their own agency, standing in their own mana and speaking powerfully from that mana. So yeah.
I think the main point is all these groups that pop up now and then, but you have to be organised. You have to be really organised, and we thank our organisation. We thank the Black Panther Party in America for that. They were a very organised group in terms of programs. We had portfolios, we had jobs we had to do, and honestly, if we weren't that organised, we wouldn't have succeeded in the things that we did back then. And I think that's what's needed is to be really organised and motivated, ready to die for the cause that you're standing up against. And that's a real thing. You have to feel what you are protesting about. You can't just read about it and say, oh yeah, I'm going to protest about that. You have to have felt it and suffered from it and to do it. And that's why to knock racism out, we have to try and gradually have conversations so that people know what it feels like. I mean, we went to this primary school, there was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy in the front row, and he put his hand up for a question. And when we asked him for his question, he said, does racism hurt? 6-year-old. So, you know, over the last few decades, I think we've had this quiet revolution going on in the background where we have flipped the conscience of a new generation of New Zealanders. And so the books that we've printed out about our cause, when we ask the children how did they enjoy it, they'd say, oh, my dad's reading it, I haven't got it yet. So it's that interest in print that's helping more New Zealanders know about our story and what activism is and how racism feels.
Aotearoa's got a history of standing up, of protest. First country in the world to allow women to vote. What was the rest of the world doing? We got a unique country here where we can do certain things. First to stand up against nuclear armaments coming into the country. First one to eliminate weapons. Just recently of what happened down in Christchurch. First country in the world to do a lot of things. So the young ones here have a history of protest. This mana, a protest in print, is part of that. So Wanda is just telling the story of what's already happening that the children should know about. It's part of their history, the Dawn Raids protest and the results of it, you know, because our children are not to be dumbed down and told, this is your history, nah, our history is rich. We stand up. When we look at our Pacific standing up against colonialism, we paid the price for it, prepared to die for it. That's what our call is. So like what Reverend is saying, to the young ones, you don't have to ask permission. You just get to do it. Yeah. You have our permission. Go for it.
Yes, I believe you had a question.
Yeah. So just on the point of media, I know we have a lot of access these days, this new generation. What were some ways that you in the 70s accessed the media in terms of newspapers as the Polynesian Panther Party to get your message across back then?
Well, our experience of the media at the time was obviously that it was biased against us. And we saw that every report when there was a crime going on, there was always named Māori or Polynesian offender. But when it happened and there was no ethnic description of who the offender was, We kind of knew that it was a Pākehā person, but we never heard any news reports of a person who was Irish or Scottish or English doing these crimes. It's just ours. So if you look at the whakapapa of the newspaper, the news reporting in Aotearoa, it was originally a settlers newspaper. It was a settlers newspaper telling news to the settlers about how things were back in England or Ireland or whatever, and it paid no attention whatsoever to tangata whenua issues or any of the issues that were relating to the wider community. It was just for the settler community, colonial settler community. So that culture has continued through the media, and one of the ways that we were able to respond to that was set up our own newspaper. A facsimile of that newspaper is currently in the Mana Museum, in the Mana exhibition here in Tāmaki Paenga, Hira, which I invite you all please to go and to see. Important news there. So that was one response. We made our own newspaper called the Panthers RAPP. Tigilau was our editor, and this was our pushback, this was our fight back. One of the other media publications, and this is really, really protest in print, was our legal aid booklet, which was a response to the unlawful arrests and detentions of young Pasifika and Māori people within our community. We didn't know the law, didn't know our civil rights or our human rights or our rights under the law. So we went and got that knowledge. And a great help at that time was David Longi, who was also alarmed at the high arrest rates of Māori and Pacific in our communities, and also the higher rates of court appearances without legal aid. So we went and got that information, and we translated as much of it as we could into the languages of our community. We're also aware that some of our people are not literate in our own language, so we created illustrations to show people how this works. Immediately when that was released, the arrest rates of young Pasifika in Ponsonby and in Greyland suddenly starts to fall away. The number of people appearing in courts without representation starts to fall away. And that book, with subsequent protests about that very fact that there was not legal representation available to the people who can't afford it, is us. So we needed to have access to legal resources. For natural justice to happen, we needed that. So as a result of the legal aid book and many other movements from that, the duty solicitor system was born, so that it gives access to all New Zealanders, regardless of your ethnicity or your economic, socio-economic standing. One of the most, I think, most of the rewarding parts of that is that it did change lives. It put people, you know, in a way that they'll be able to respond intelligently and carefully and within the law to approaches from law enforcement. And more importantly, that today, when we were growing up, I think there was about 2 lawyers who were Pasifika, and there was no Pasifika judges. But now we have many Pasifika lawyers. We have judges now who are lawyers, Pasifika people who are judges. And I am proud to say that my niece has just recently been accepted into on the bar of the.
Wow. But just an answer to your question, the media was not our friend.
Yeah,
and talking about the organisation of the Panthers, Changi was the our Minister of Culture and Fine Arts because he could play the guitar. We had a nurse who was wanting to be a nurse. She was our Minister of Health. But we had our very own Minister of Information who was a university student. He's in the audience now, is Wayne Toleafoa. Would you like to say a few words, Wayne, about the media?
Yeah, well, we did have a lot of speaking appointments in different places, including the university, and I did write quite a lot of articles for the university magazines and for other media. We also had a good relationship with Western Leader, believe it or not, in Ponsonby.
We delivered the newspapers.
And so, because the Panther office was right next to their office, and so we were able to communicate through that newspaper as well, because they were quite friendly with us, and a number of other publications, if you like, where we were working with other organisations like the People's Union, the Progressive Youth Movement, and there was Tim Shadbolt and that whole group of people who were doing their own publications. So quite often they'd put something from the Panthers in there as well. So we were working actively to try and get the information about the Panthers out there. And you know, I remember one article I put in the Western Leader about we're here to help the community, and we got well, I got a couple of calls from people that said, "Can you come and mow our lawn?" There's some old people. I thought, and I seriously thought about it. I thought, well, maybe we should be helping older people, but you know, to try to tell them that this is not what the organisation is about. But then we had the Panther programs, and so we tried to publicise those as well, and often through leaflets in the community, and working with, as I say, with other Palangi organisations, you know, who are also aiming at the same things as us, addressing poverty, addressing injustice, like in housing, and also addressing racism. So, yeah, there was quite a big group of people. Many of them went on to become politicians, and Ngā Tamatoa was another group that we worked with. And so Ngā Tamatoa, I noticed in this photo here, there's Hannah Jackson, there's Brian McDonald, and so they are from Ngā Tamatoa. And I recognise other people in there that were from other organisations but actually worked with us, and they would be helping us to publicise the platforms that we stood for. And so that was how we addressed it in the media. And then, of course, we were on television a few times. You know, I remember when the dawn raids were on, we went to the newspapers because the politicians were saying there are no dawn raids, or that there was no random checks. And so we went to the newspapers and said there are, and we got the people to go onto TV, give their stories to the newspapers, and I even had a politician who was a relative in Samoa said, "Is this really happening?" And I said, "Yes, it's really happening, and it's happening to a lot of people." And then, so there were several newspapers that ran the stories about the dawn raids and the random checks. So we were trying to find every opportunity to publicise our cause. Yeah.
Thanks, Wayne.
You have no idea. Today you got this.
Yes.
You got these. You have no idea what it's like to try and get a message across, especially to people that didn't like you and would print negative stuff about you. You know, you're all the same. You know, so yeah, completely different era.
Yeah.
Today, you still have to be careful, but again, you don't have to ask permission. Write it out.
Now, unfortunately, our time has come to an end. We've just gone a bit over time. Sorry about that, Wanda. But Reverend Alec, if you could please... Oh, one more question. Thank you.
Kia ora. My question is, what anchored your anger through all of this when you could have retaliated with violence, but yet there was something there that anchored your anger, that you guys got the tenant tribunal, the PIG, and then years later you guys were able to get the apology as well. And it's just something that generations like myself and future generations will also be grateful for, but what anchored your anger then?
Che Guevara says, a true revolutionary is moved by great feelings of love for the people. That's us.
Also, our ancestors, the Mao, our Samoan leader, when he was shot and killed by the police constabulary in a peaceful demonstration, he said, "Do not avenge my death. My blood has been spilt for Samoa." So that is our, our resistance to violence. We used well, we had a military wing, but that was just for our protection. Wasn't it?
Racism is violent. We know that.
Yeah,
so
that's
if
right.
you
It needs
retaliate
violence
in such a
to
way,
breathe. Yeah.
It's only because of that. And we have the opportunity to eliminate all forms of racism in this country. Wouldn't that be great?
Yes, if we eliminate systemic and institutional racism, all the other ones will disappear. So that's the racism we need to fight against, because racism lives in legislation and policy. The Dawn Raids, apology in 21, great, but guess what? There was a Dawn Raid last year.
Yeah.
When a Tongan family was, and so what the beautiful thing about that was, instead of just, the Panthers or the brown people jumping up and down, it was New Zealanders who immediately, put the kibosh on that. And so now, the Minister of Immigration have to look at the legislation and change it in terms of compliance checks, they called it. But it was a Dawn Raid.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that anchored us was that I think many of us understood through our own experience of violence as either a recipient of violence or a perpetrator of violence, that it solves nothing. And that we needed to have another strategy, and that strategy was to look at how we could become politically active and not rely on brute force that achieves nothing. So I think that was why we did what we did, and why we took a non-violent approach to our activities. Yeah. It's interesting that the hardest questions were asked by relatives. Friends.
We expected
I'm going to
that.
talk with you later about that.
Cool. Any more questions?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I was wondering, with your involvement with Mana, what was your experience like working with those collaborators, those language centered and community concerned, those worried people who wouldn't call themselves that level of out in the streets activists?
Yes.
But you knew, you got there, you received all their articles, all their things they're bringing in to make this newspaper. How would you, can you speak to those collaborators of yours and tell us a bit more about, they might not call themselves
Yes.
activists,
Yes.
but what they were doing was revolutionary.
They were good people. It was important for us to get as many languages as possible in one outlet, in one newspaper. Mana was that. And to reach out into the community, we had to go through some of the leaders, like the churches, to find people who could write stories And whatever it happened to be, protest or not, it was important. Our voices were put together in one place. I think that was the first of its kind. So to be able to do that, you got no idea. Cut and paste with a scalpel and, you know, the typewritten thing, and you got to cut it and put it, make sure it takes time. But that was the cut and paste, you know. Gestetner, anybody here know what a gestetner? Yeah, yeah.
Before my time.
It's like, yeah. So in order to get our voice, our people's voice out, you have to do that. And for the men and women who did the interpretations and wrote the stories, they are more revolutionary and activist than they believe or think they were. They were right up there when nobody represented us. They were the media, mainstream. Look, same thing in music. Why did we start the Pacific Music Awards? We only have 1% of music in the mainstream. So, you know, we have to do our own things for ourselves. And we're not being separatist or anything. It's for our survival. So knowing that here was an opportunity, run with it. The last thing I remember I put together was a protest for Ngāti Whātua. That was front page of Mana newspaper. And I knew there would be a lot of vitriol, you know, how come, why? We know now why. We're standing in this Ngāti Whātua hallowed ground because of that. So, you know, our people had a voice for tangata whenua then, right up front. And also it was to educate, to liberate our people as well. You know, we're involved in that too, because if it happens to any one of us, it happens to all of us. So Mana, the newspaper like that, well, for the Panthers RAPP, how's that for a name? Now, the same idea was to put as many of our languages together, telling our stories ourselves, because nobody else could do it. Would do it. We had a good contact in there. His name was John Panga. John Panga. He worked for Auckland Star. He helped us, you know, giving advice and supporting when nobody else in that organisation did. So coming through to Tangata Pacifica now, which is why we need it. You know, so all this, you know, we have to tell our own stories. Nobody better can tell it for us. Anybody else that tries, you know, we'll send out the military wing to let them know. No. Yeah.
Cool. Whawhetai lava, thank you so much for your wonderful questions. And again, thank you to the panel for such inspiring answers, but also giving us, I guess, permission to be unapologetically Pacific in present day. And a lot of this wouldn't be possible without the work that you guys conducted before us, way before our time. And thank you again. If I could just get you, Reverend Alec, to just make our final words, closing remarks for today's panel.
All right. I just want to say that to all of us here this evening is that we have been talking about a lot of issues that have affected Pasifika and Māori in Aotearoa and in our hood in particular. Some of it might have been challenging and even confronting, and so we are aware of that. We hope that something that you have heard tonight, or something that you have, something that's come from this talanoa tonight, is going to create an appetite for more research to scratch a little bit further than what you've heard here or what you already know. And that if we have in any way filled in those knowledge gaps for you, or have inspired you to stand up in your hood and speak out against the things that are impacting you, then you know, we're grateful that has happened. We're also very grateful for the people who have made this evening possible, the people from Tāmaki Paenga Hira, Wanda and Olivia, who have, and also the people who have been working in the background. We said Te Vita there. He's been like everywhere tonight. And thank Alec for her facilitating this very important kōrero this evening. And also the people who've come out tonight fighting through the traffic and this weather as well to be present here this evening. And we know obviously it is important to you to be here, and it's important for us that you are here as well. So wherever, whatever community you're in and whatever issues are affecting you, we hope that you are empowered by some of the things you've heard here this evening. And I would highly recommend that you, if you haven't already, to go through the Mana exhibition here and find out more of the detail of the communities the life of the communities in that era, and how not too dissimilar they are today. Those same issues are appearing today. So I think with that, we just want to say a big thank you to you all for your support, not just this evening, but many of you have supported us over many years and across many front lines. So we want to thank you for all of that as well. I think that's, do I need to say, is there anything else you would like to contribute to this? No. Okay.
Thank you, Wanda.